Hey everyone, it's Laura from What's It Feel Like, and as you know, this channel is here to help other people feel less alone by having real people sit down and tell their real stories about getting through life. And so today I want to introduce you to Mary T. Mary T was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes at the age of 9. And at the time, this was about 40 years ago, there weren't the advances that there are now. But the one thing that helped her get through the diagnosis was what her mother said to her about being the best darn diabetic that anyone has ever seen. And so here's the first part of our interview of Mary T talking about what it felt like at that age to be diagnosed and how she got through her childhood living with juvenile diabetes.
My name is Mary T. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 9. I actually saw the symptoms of it when I was 8, and they couldn't diagnose me for a year. My parents took me to multiple doctors. They couldn't diagnose me. They think at the time I was going through a honeymoon phase. And the honeymoon phase, what that means in diabetes language, is your pancreas sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So that made me harder to diagnose because the pancreas would blip, blip, blip a little insulin and then stop completely. So when I happened to be going to the doctors for these appointments, my pancreas was working when they did blood sugars on me. My mom, as an RN, she knew enough to be dangerous in the fact when she was an RN, people with diabetes did not make it. They were told to eat lettuce, carrots. That's what you eat for the rest of your life, and you're gonna learn to give a shot. My mom thought, okay, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be eating lettuce and carrots, and I don't have a real good prognosis as to how long I'm going to be living. So when I went to Children's Hospital and met all the fabulous doctors and nurses and the arts and crafts and all that stuff at the hospital, and I was there for a week learning all of this, on the second day, I remember my mom shaking me, going, "You're gonna live! You're gonna live! And I can't believe it! You can eat! You are gonna be able to eat!" Which was like, it was just miraculous. And I kept looking at him because I didn't really know what the heck was going on other than I was sick and that nurses and doctors were, coming to my bedside. I said, okay. And with that, I had a dietitian that was telling me I would be eating, pizza and different kinds of food. But at the same time, I learned, okay, you're gonna give yourself a shot. Now you're 9 years old. And I'm like, well, I really don't wanna give myself a shot. And the doctor at the time said, well, tough kid, if you ever wanna go spend the night at someone else's house, and you probably do, and at 9 years old, spending the night over at a friend's house is pretty cool. If you want to, then you're gonna have to learn to give yourself a shot. Otherwise, you're gonna have to stop and say, I want my mom to come over. And do you want your mom to come over all the time? I'm like, all right, I'll learn. And I feel grateful in the fact that I got it when I was 9. I didn't have a schedule in my life, like I only eat this, or you did what your parents told you to do. I remember asking my mom when I was diagnosed, maybe the third day in the hospital, I said, well, why did I get it and no one else got it? Because no one in my family had ever had diabetes. No one. It was completely new. And I remember asking my mom, why did I get it? No one else did. And she said, because God chose you. She didn't miss a beat. God chose you. God knew that you would be the best diabetic that anybody could ever see. And he knows it's gonna be tough, but he knows that you are gonna be so great at it that you are gonna show other people how to take care of your diabetes, and you're not gonna get sick because you're gonna be so good with this. And I went, okay. And to this day, 40 years later, I believe God chose me. God chose me. There's a lot of things that he could have chose me for, but he chose me to be the best darn diabetic there ever was. And I remember the nurses overseeing my mom when she was talking this way, and they're looking at her like, you're gonna make this girl hate God. And instead, I don't. I think God is great, and we're all gonna get something, and I feel pretty privileged that he chose me to show other people how to take care of their diabetes. Parents today, when their children are diagnosed with diabetes, they're only in the hospital for 48 hours max. And then they get 2 days to learn how to test blood sugars. Now, you don't have to do blood sugars all the time like you did when I was little, but you still have to know how to do it when you need to do it, how to give yourself a shot, and how to manage the diabetes. I think any parent, if you have a child that has just been diagnosed with diabetes, I think the first thing that goes through a parent's mind is, oh, how did I do this? How did I fail? Like, why? It's my fault. Like, I wonder if it was in my family, or how can I stop this? How can I fix this? Because I just want her to be fixed, and it can't be fixed. And you can't. It's a disease that not many people understand it. They just think like, oh, you can't have a candy bar. Well, that's not true either. You can have just about anything. You just have to monitor it. I honestly thank God for my mom, because she wouldn't let me rebel, very rarely. She really was all over me all the time, and I think she knew enough. She just was on it, and she wouldn't let me pity myself, of any sort. It was, you're just gonna be the best at whatever you do. Whatever you decide to do, you're gonna be the best. And so whether it's work or whether it's diabetes or anything, that's the way you gotta live your life. You just have to be great at it. You have to be a great mom. I can't say that I'm the best mom, but you've got to be able to let your kids make their own choices, but also be pretty stern. If you're living in this house, you're gonna be taking care of your diabetes. That's all there is to it. And we're not going to pity you. You can manage this. What's it feel like to have diabetes? It feels like an honor. I mean, I was chosen, and I'm a darn good diabetic, and you can be too. That's all there is to it.
Okay, so you can see that Mary T's mother played a huge role in her attitude towards, dealing with type 1 diabetes as a child. But then she had to deal with it as an adult. And one of the things that Mary T shared that I think is really interesting is a lot of us don't know the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So she explains the difference between those two and what she would do for any adult who was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
It drives me crazy when I hear people say, oh, diabetes, and they put type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes in the same bucket. It's not the same bucket. Type 1, your pancreas just stops. They don't know why. They don't have any reason for why your pancreas just stops producing insulin. So you want insulin. The whole purpose of insulin is to keep your blood sugars level. And for a normal person, they don't have to think about when they eat and how much insulin they're giving. So type 2 diabetes, you'll get when you can get when you are older. So usually it happens to someone older than 30, usually. I'm just doing a generality. And it's usually a person that's overweight, that doesn't have a real good health code. If they're overweight, they don't watch what they eat, their blood sugars are just naturally higher. But if they lose weight and they watch their diet, their type 2 diabetes can go away. Type 1 never goes away. It stinks, but let's not get caught up in and how it stinks. You can be the best diabetic there is, and that's not even politically correct anymore. I'm a person with diabetes, but whatever. I still call myself the diabetic. From the time I was 9 to about 35, it was not a topic of discussion that I really wanted to bring up all that much unless I really got to know you. Then I would bring up the diabetes. I mean, I think the reason I kind of started saying it more is that, heck, I'm pretty good at this. And I think people are so afraid. I think maybe because I became a mom. And I have 3 kids without diabetes, thank God. But I also am more accepting of what God's gonna give me. I just gotta accept it and make the best of it. I mean, I don't have a choice. You have to do this well. And now as a mother, I gotta do it extra well. As a matter of fact, I didn't like the idea of exercise for a very long time. I hated it because what happens when you exercise, when you have diabetes and you are pumping insulin into you, what happens, you go to exercise so you can lose weight. I mean, you wanna be healthy, but at the same time, you'd love to lose a pound or 2. You go to exercise, you work your face off, and in the middle of the exercise, your blood sugar drops. The only thing that you can do to fix that is to eat. So the whole point of exercising was to lose the stupid weight, and you gotta eat while you're exercising. What a joke is that? So you have to You have to give yourself up and say, okay, guinea pig, other people have done it before. You're not the first, so you're going to do it, and you're going to get it right. There's Olympic athletes. There's baseball players. They all do it, and they have diabetes. Some of them, I'm not saying everybody, but they've figured out a way to do it. You figure out a way to do it. If someone were just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I would tell them, I don't even know if I'd tell them, I'd show them. I'd take them out, I'd take them to the grocery store, because everything about diabetes is about what you're eating. So going to a grocery store and knowing the calories and the carbohydrates on anything. I mean, carbohydrates are what causes you to put insulin in you. So yeah, if you don't have to put insulin in you, if you're only eating lettuce, no carbohydrates. If you're only eating carrots, no carbohydrates. You don't have to put any insulin in. But if you're eating fruit, or you're eating any sort of bread or chips, even candy, you can eat anything now with our devices. You have to manage it by putting more insulin in so that your blood sugar doesn't go high. You also have to manage it so that when you put insulin in, you don't put too much insulin in, because if you put too much insulin in, that's when you drop and you have an insulin reaction and everyone freaks out. After we do the grocery shopping, and if people are just so devastated, it is normal to be devastated. It's a lousy disease. That's why they call it a disease. I used to call it diabetes because people would you die from it if you don't take care of it. You have to manage it, and you have all the tools to manage it. It's not the greatest, but it sure as heck isn't the worst.
So I absolutely loved Mary T's attitude during this interview. Sometimes we sit down with people and they talk about their stories, and it's hard for them and they struggle, but it was somewhat refreshing to sit down with Mary T, and she realized that she feels like God picked her to be a diabetic because she can be such an example for other people. So thank you to Mary T for sharing her story. And remember, if you're out there struggling with some type of illness or disease, talk about it and let other people know. You're either going to help them or you'll get some help yourself. If you like the content on this channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you turn your notifications on so every time we upload a video, you get to see it. And once again, we hope that every time you watch something here on this platform, it helps you or someone you know feel less alone. Thanks.